Is
Yeah.
above or below?
Below.
Below. So there's
Yeah.
a gap, right?
Yes.
So we need to increase the competence of the employee so that the target can be met. For example, upselling in sales and retail. Okay. What about organizational change?
Organizational change is like, let's say they want to change their policies and their strategies, all those, to improve the business itself.
Okay, very good. Organizational change. What is one example of organizational change? You have?
Let's say uh, organizational change. Uh,
In RM zone.
the culture.
Okay, very good. One is culture. Okay, culture change. Somebody has got an experience of being in part of a culture change. Grace,
Yes.
your internship company went through cultural change, right? When you were there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you tell the class a little bit about this?
So my company internship, right? Mostly they are from Malaysia, and got from China also. So they were like trying their best to they are adjust, cause when we go there we mostly speak in English.
Mm.
So yeah, for me, I don't understand Chinese, right? So I have to ask them like to speak in English for me so that I understand especially during the meeting. So yeah.
So what was the organization? When I spoke with your HR manager, she told me that your company just went through some culture change. So are you aware of the culture changes?
Oh, that one they never really share to us.
Okay, okay, can but so there were a lot of changes lah basically. So in addition to what Charles mentioned, a kind of cultural change, a kind of organizational change is, for example, change in vision mission, change in strategic plan. Okay, so these are organizational change. uh I think other groups may have other answers also. I'll leave it there first. Okay, Charles, what about tech change?
Let's say there's a new technology where products can be produced faster.
Mm.
Yeah, so they don't have to hire so many people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so change in the adoption of technology, right? The company worldwide, maybe machineries all change. Okay, good job. Next group three. Group three. Ufa.
Okay, so like for us is performance gap is the difference between an intended and actual performance or goal. Okay. So like an example that we have discussed is that like a salesperson doesn't hit the monthly goal in terms of sales.
Okay.
Yeah. For organization change, refers to when a company or business alters a major component of its organization. So one example would be like mergers or acquisitions.
Excellent job.
Okay. Technological change would be when company needs to adopt new technology to reinvent their business models and values.
Okay, very good. Let's move on. Group four.
Hi, so for our group, the performance gap is referring to a visual designer for advertising not hitting their daily target due to a lack of efficiency during work. And then the organization change is referring to, for example, an organization has decided to rebrand as a more eco-friendly company, therefore their culture has changed.
Yes, very good.
Then for the technology change is basically a change in the organization IT system software to maybe improve more on their productivity.
Okay, good job. Okay, I want to bring your attention to. Can you flash again? I want to bring your attention to organization change mentioned by them. Okay, this is also a kind of cultural change. The company wants to rebrand to become more eco-friendly. So a lot of things needs to change, right? They need to encourage reduction in paper use. Things cannot be printed already. Then things have to move on to online. So this, although to us is like very minor, right? But then, if the organization is huge, you require some steps to ensure that things go on smoothly. Because if people don't move in the same direction as you, your organization change, vision or mission will fail. For example, you want to use less paper, but your employees still continue to print things on single-sided, or regardless anything that on email they see, they just print because they prefer to just read on paper. Then your company direction will fail because your employees are moving in the opposite direction. Then all this you need to send them for training. Maybe they prefer reading on paper because of certain issues. Maybe the computer is too small. So or maybe because they don't know how to enlarge and this and that. So these are the things that you need to find out from them. So that is where your training needs analysis come into play. Your training needs survey and analysis come into play, because then you can identify, is it because they don't know how to enlarge the words on the email? Is it a personality? Okay, is it something to do with their eyesight? So if it's something to do with their eyesight, this is considered a non-training issue. No matter what training you send them to, their eyes no good means eyes no good. They still need to print and then so that they can bring it closer. If it is they don't know how to enlarge the font on screen, then that is a training issue. So now you see, just now we mentioned about training and non-training issue. So these are some examples. Okay, good job. Let's move on to the next group. Group 5.
Hi, so the performance gap is the difference between intended and actual performance. So for example, insurance company or call center doesn't hit their daily targets.
Okay.
And then for organizational change is change in company structure, strategies, culture, or core values to improve performance and business growth.
Okay.
Example is merger and acquisition or change in leaderships.
Okay.
And then
so you have the same thing as the previous group. We just refer to the previous group can already. You don't have to go over again.
Okay. Then technological change is the rise of cloud computing and AI in the new age. For example, Uber or Grab, they changed the taxi and transportation industry.
Yes. So now that Tanya mentioned this, Tanya, right? I never hear her voice only, huh? Correct.
Yes.
Yes. Mentioned about the Uber and Grab. So a tech change, there is a tech change for comfort, because Comfort's businesses started to dwindle, then you see that Comfort Taxi, all the existing taxi drivers, they start to go into all these platforms. And then only recently, Comfort came up with their own transportation app. So they have gone through a technological change. But they took so long to change is because there are a lot of training and non-training issues that they need to iron out first. Okay, good job. Next. Group 6, right?
Hello.
Yes.
Okay, so for the first one, it will be if the organization is lacking of transparency and employee involvement, then the employees are unaware of the organization objective, and this can lead to performance gap.
Okay.
Yeah. So for the organization change, it will be it can be in terms of the job structure or the change in people.
Change in people. Very good.
Yeah. And then for technological change, it means that to adopt new technologies such as having a management system to manage the database for efficiency.
Okay. Okay. What about if I were to change my HRIS system, payroll system? All this considered tech change?
I think that is more of software change right now.
Also considered tech change lah.
Yeah.
So give you one example for ITE. Recently, ITE, okay, before I came, ITE was using Lotus Notes for email. Have you all heard of Lotus Notes? Silence means no.
No.
Because I also never hear of Lotus Notes for a very long time already. Like for more than a decade, I've not heard of Lotus Notes. So when I came, they were using Lotus Notes. You can imagine the emoticon that I have, the mouth big one. That only last year, sometime end last year, then they ported our email system to Microsoft Outlook. So of course, when they do changes, they have certain timeline that they need to meet. And there were also training associated with it because although I am good in, I know how to use Microsoft Outlook, some older people, they may not know. So these people require some training. So that is a so-called a large-scale tech change that ITE has gone, that have undergone recently. Okay, good job. Next, group 1. Let's go to group 1 first before going to group 7.
I shall share the screen.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so for the performance gap, I just see out one example. There's 3 there. Okay, so it's like when the salesperson does not hit the target, then the entire sales team will fall short of the goal. Yeah, and then for the organizational change, one of the example is retrenchment of employees.
Okay, very good.
Yes, then the technological change will be the companies shifting to e-commerce.
Okay. So, question for your group. When it comes to retrenchment of employee, what kind of training needs are needed? I want to ensure that you all know what I'm talking about.
Something like talent skills workshop, that kind. The selling skills workshop, that kind.
I can't hear you, Darren.
Selling skills workshops for salespersons.
I'm talking about retrenchment of employees.
Can I say, the reason why we feel that retrenchment employees is also part of it because like when you retrench employees, then your current employees there's a change. Like some people may take up different jobs as well, so there's a need for them to be trained because it's not going to be the same job scope they're going to be doing. Sometimes it's going to be more than how it used to, and maybe like even the shifting of departments.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good answer. So training related to retrenchment of employees will be, this is a kind of restructuring. So it'll be like retraining certain staff for job rotation, job enlargement, okay, or new roles. Okay. Another possible training that may be associated with organizational change will be communication skills. How do you train the department manager to retrench somebody, to talk to the person without the person feeling bad at the end of it? Okay, that is a skill that all HR person will have to go through. Okay, tech change. Tech change. Okay, we talked about this already. We can skip this. Okay, let's move on to group 7. Thank you very much, group 1.
Yeah, so actually for group 7, right? Actually most of the things has already been said by the other groups, but I'm just gonna go through it again. So
Okay.
our example is performance gaps will be salesperson sales difference and the lack of measurable involvement.
Okay.
Then for organization change is actually very similar. So change in leadership, change in work culture, and simply is when a company decides to change its structure, strategy, culture, or policies, or its core values to improve performance and business growth. So nothing new there. So for technological change is like the other group mentioned, like taxi companies has been taken over by Grab, and somewhere more convenient, and Comfort is a very good example as well. But another one I want to add on is let's say talk about chatbots, because last time there wouldn't be automated like emails like last time, so you have to do it all manually. So that makes us way more convenient to do our things now as the technological advancements grow.
Yes, very good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good job. All right, let's move on. So these are the three changes that an organization may go. These are the three changes that an organization may go through, or the three things that will require training. So these are the factors that we need to see. Is it a performance gap? Is it an organizational change? Is it a tech change? Because these three areas require different kinds of training. Therefore, you need to consider. Okay, next. You can read this. We talked about this already. Here, you also can read it by yourself. Okay. These are some of the possible organizational change. Let's take a minute to read. Okay, let's move on. Tech change. Adoption of new technology. Okay. Okay, the next thing will be, the next factor we need to consider will be learners' needs. What he or she wants as compared to the current level. For example, back to the example that I gave you just now about sending somebody for advanced in conversational English course, where what the person need is basic. You also need to consider their different learning styles and their past experiences. So this is related to the 7 intelligences. Of course, there are other learning styles. Okay, but for TAM, let's just focus on these 7. As you go to poly and then you take this module again, and you will learn other learning styles. Okay. Learner needs analysis is the same as training needs analysis. Okay, these are the common competencies. You can take a look, but I will not go through. Okay, next, another factor we need to consider will be the resource. Very important, money. No money, you cannot send, right? So we have to work within the budget. Okay, this is like the case of you going to a holiday. You set aside a budget of $1,000. Do you think you can go to the United States?
No,
Yeah,
because airfare costs more than that actually.
correct. So you have to limit, right? So the same thing when it comes to considering about training. You know there are so many things that you need to train the employee on, but your company only set aside this amount of money. And you know that after meeting the first few needs, you have no money already. Therefore, the government grant will come in very useful. So that is why you are required to suggest some government grants for the companies to tap on so that they can cover more grounds when it comes to training. Okay, next, other resource consideration will be your training material, your space, and your manpower. Who is going to teach? If you're going to run it internally, who's going to teach? Do you have somebody, an expert to do the teaching? And you want to do it in-house? Do you have the space? Okay, space constraint is very real. At first, if you remember, I set your IA presentation on Thursday and Friday. So I managed to get a classroom on Friday, but I can't get one on Thursday. Therefore, I have to do it next Tuesday during our lesson, because I can only find that slot and where I have rooms. Okay, let's move on. Another factor to consider will be group size. The number of employees to be trained, the types of training, the use of equipment, any special facilities, and the availability of space. If you want to train 100 employees at one go, possible if you have the training rooms available now. And now, you still have to take into consideration COVID measures. So now, consideration for group size is very real. You need to have social distance. You need to ensure that they are at least 1 meter apart. So that room can only fit, a room that used to fit 40, now can only fit maybe maximum 20. Okay, then also the sharing of equipment. Okay, all these are factors you need to think about when you suggest training or come up with solutions for closing the competency gap. Okay, training methods or format is covered and elaborated in A1.6. Can we all turn to A1.6? Sorry, not A1.6, A6.1. Familiar? We talked about this, right? Just now? Okay, so these are the delivery methods or format which we talked about just now in class. Okay, next. Time and duration of the training. These are some consideration. If you hold training after office hours or on weekend, people tend to be unhappy. I ask you to come back to school on Saturday, you also feel unhappy, right? Same thing for employees. If I take away your lunch break and ask you to go for training, you will also feel unhappy. So these are the things that you need to consider when it comes to duration. If I extend the class to 8 hours a day without break, it's not going to be effective also. So these are the things that you need to consider. You also need to consider the training facilitator or the vendor. Do they have their education, their experience, and how expert they are? And choose the right one so that it can be successful and effective. When you work with external people, you need to ensure that they are aligned with your company's values and goals. And most importantly, at the end of the training, what is the reward for the employee? Do they get a certificate? Do they have higher chance of getting promoted? Are they going to be recognized for the effort they put in? So one incentive that the government gave Singaporeans, the Skills Future, is when I completed my, so I took before coming to ITE, I took a advanced certificate in adult learning. Certificate in adult learning. So it's about a 6-month course. So of course I paid some money for the certificate. Okay. Upon completion of the course, I get the WSQ certificate that is nationally recognized, and the government gave me some money upon completion. I think it's $500. So that is an incentive. Some organization reward staff by giving them certificate. So if the and also other possibility will be upon completion, they have higher chance of getting promoted, things like this. So these are incentives. Then people will want to spend the time for the training. Okay, we'll skip this. Okay, before we go on to the next part, let's take a 10-minute break. We still have about 10 more slides to go. Shall we take a 10 minutes break?
Okay.
Okay, I'll see you all at 2:15.